Hey everybody, it's time for Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Ooh. How's everybody doing? I'm here for Mental Health Mondays. Hope you can hear me because my fan is on and it's kind of like warm in my room, so I don't feel like turning it off. I have not felt like turning this fan off at all. Um, Energy's a little low. I haven't been feeling too hot, but I am going to still do my video blogs no matter how I'm feeling because consistency. So yeah, Mental Health Mondays. Happy Mental Health Monday. And today's topic I just wanted to touch a little bit on. Probably won't be long, but I know it's something that a lot of people deal with. PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder. And I know quite a few people who are familiar with it. I know a lot of people who are vets. A lot of people who were like in the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, stuff like that. Witnessing any type of traumatic event brings PTSD. And PTSD is pretty much a Jesus Christ. Psychiatric disorder that occur in people who have experienced any type of traumatic event or witnessed a traumatic event. So like, let's say for example, if someone saw somebody get shot in front of them, if somebody witnessed a car crash, prime example, people who were witnesses and in the area when 9/11 happened, stuff like that. So it could even be something that's not even really as major or as extreme as 9/11. It could be something so deep as in like I want to say like if you've had like a miscarriage or you've had an abortion that you didn't want to, like you were against doing but you had no choice but to do. If you've have it's like it's many different forms of PTSD. Some are bigger than others, and I honestly think that I may have had or have a mild form of PTSD because I had like a traumatic event happen last year. I don't even want to go into details, but because I'm not ready to. But I did have a situation where I fell out with a friend, and that's why I said yes in yesterday's video that I used the term friend too loosely, because this person was supposed to be my friend and they went telling my business all on Facebook or whatever, and it was so bad to the point where I went to the precinct and I filed a complaint because this person not only tried to not only aired out my business, but they were threatening to like do some type of revenge porn type of thing against me and another friend of mine or whatever, and posted out her address and all of that. So we filed a complaint, and I don't know if like since then I kind of like left the situation alone. I'm just trying to like be at peace with it. It does still bother me because there's really no closure on that situation, but I have been I've been in therapy. I've been back in therapy for like a little over a month now, and that's helped me. And then the fact that I have like such a great support system, it's helped me too, because I didn't even realize that I was still vengeful against the person until like literally this summer. And I was just told I have to let that hurt go, but it's easier said than done, because I'm the type of person, if there is no closure or there is no if there's no closure in the situation, I'm gonna dwell on it. I don't know why I do that, but it's just I'm learning that sometimes you just have to accept an apology that you're never gonna get and forgive people for you, not for them, So PTSD can come in mild, moderate, severe forms, and there's people who have witnessed people getting shot. getting shot. They've witnessed all types of like deaths, traumatic events, all kinds of things. And the people who suffer the most are the people who go to wars, because they come back home and they're afraid of loud noises. They just not the same. They're not the same as when they left or whatever, they got deployed or anything like that. So PTSD is very real, and that's another mental health issue that I wish would stop getting swept under the rug, because it's really real. And there are really people walking around here who have, snapped. They've kind of lost their sense of self, pretty much. Like, they no longer want to do things. They're depressed all the time. They're overly anxious, and it's kind of sad. It kind of makes a person become a shell of themselves, and it's truly, truly sad. But yeah, it's it's something that shouldn't be swept under the rug. It's something that, like, I think it really does require therapy. Like, if it's something that people are going through, you do need to seek therapy and to find ways to counter it, because it's not an easy situation to be in. So I feel like with PTSD, I feel like it's very like hush hush. People don't like to talk about it. People don't like to seek therapy, because the first thing people think, I don't know why people have this stigma that if you go to therapy, that means something is wrong with you. No, that is the furthest from the truth. Going to therapy does not mean that something is wrong with you. Going to therapy means that you are taking care of yourself, that you're making sure that you're straight, that you just have somebody there to listen, because people get so caught up in their daily living, they don't realize that, I have emotions and I have things that I'm dealing with mentally that I can't discuss. So I feel like PTSD should be taken a lot more serious, because, like I said, there's people walking around here who somewhere, because they witnessed a traumatic event, they snapped, or they're just not themselves anymore, and it's really sad. But it 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 takes a strong person to want help. You can't want somebody. You can't save someone who doesn't want to save themselves. And luckily for me, I've never, and I hope to God I never do, I've never witnessed an event that was like traumatic. I mean, I don't want to say I witnessed September 11th. I mean, I did, like, that day is like very, I don't know, that's a very somber day for me, because at the time of 9/11, my mother and my grandmother were both working in the city, and my mother literally worked like maybe, I'd say, 4 blocks from the towers, and my grandmother, she worked in like Midtown Manhattan, like on 34th Street. She worked in that area, and I remember that whole day. You could first of all, I think that where my class was, I was in high school at the time, I think the class that I was in, you could see the towers from the window. But for whatever weird reason, like, when one of my classmates, we was taking a test, and one of my classmates yelled, "Oh shit," and then everybody ran to the window. So for whatever reason, I didn't move out of my seat. I stayed still, like I was frozen in time. And then the principal brought us downstairs for like an emergency meeting, and that's when he announced that the Twin Towers got hit by planes and that they collapsed. And when I tell you, I was super confused. I didn't even understand what was going on. So I know, like, I think they let us out early that day, and when I was heading home, I saw like a black line of smoke, like coming from Manhattan going towards the other side of Brooklyn. And still I was confused. I'm like, what is going on? So when I got home, I sat in the room with my uncle, and I kept asking him questions like, well, what happened? And he's like, well, the Twin Towers, the planes were hijacked and the Twin Towers got hit. And I'm like, well, what does hijack mean? And he's like, people stole planes, and they crashed it into the twin towers, and the buildings collapsed, and it's a terrorist attack. And I'm like, well, what's a terrorist attack? Like, when I tell y'all I was confused, my mind was blank, and all I kept thinking was, my mom works in the city, my grandmother works in the city, I hope that they can make it home. And like, it was so much confusion, so much craziness going on that day. So trains were not running to the city from the city because people were afraid of like a bomb threat. We were just in a panic that day. So my mom, I think she would have gotten off of work. I think she would have gotten off of work like 3 o'clock. I can't remember the shift my mother was working. But all I know is my mother did not come home until late, I think the next day. And my mother never talks about it. I've never had the conversation with her about September 11th, but I do remember her saying that the day that it happened and the day that the buildings collapsed where she was working at, it was like debris, dust, and like big old bugs coming in through the vents and stuff. So a lot of people are still getting like compensated or whatever for if they worked in that area. They're getting compensation or whatever for any health problems that they might have had from September 11th. So like, that's like a traumatic event that, you know, I didn't witness like front row, but it kind of like hits me a little bit because, like I said, my mom and my grandmother worked in that area, and I was in a panic. But my grandmother had came home from work early because I guess they let them go early. It was just my mother who I was afraid for because she worked the closest to the tower. So I was like, I hope nothing happened to my mother. But she finally came home after a while, and it was just scary. But you know, stuff like that is like situations that change you for the worse. And it just like makes you feel like it changes you. Like, you have a different outlook on like certain situations. As far as PTSD goes, it'll either change you for the worse or the better. But I think PTSD changes most for the worst, and it gets swept under the rug a lot. And I feel like we need to, that's with any mental health topic that I talk about, I would like to see actually discussed and be brought to the light so that we can figure out the next steps to counter this, as opposed to people turning to suicide and turning into drugs and alcohol and stuff like that to numb the pain and whatnot. I feel like we need to have like an open forum, no judgment zone, so that people could get stuff like this off of their chest. And I will always be an advocate. I will always be a buffer. I will always be any way that I can bring light to mental illness as a whole. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to talk about it until something is done. So yeah, there are a lot of different situations that have PTSD. A good movie to watch, actually, that is a good interpretation of what PTSD is, Dead Presidents. That movie is sad as hell, but it touches on PTSD. It touches on pretty much how unfair veterans are treated after they serve their time or whatever. Like, veterans in America get treated like trash out here. Like, a lot of them become homeless. A lot of them need serious like mental health help. A lot of them become desperate for money. Like, it's really sad. But Dead Presidents is a really good movie to watch. That and it's the movie with Lorenz Tate and Chris Tucker and Boucher Wright. That's a good movie to watch. That'll show you what happens after the war and whatnot, and how PTSD sets in, and how your life is after. Like, it's a real struggle. It really is. But yeah, if anybody is out there suffering from PTSD, please feel free to comment. I would love to hear your story. I would love to hear how I and anybody else could help you. You know, you can contact me in any way. I'm always available. But yeah, I don't really have too many stories about PTSD, just the ones that I feel like I'm familiar with. But I feel like there's people out there who have, like, you know, more in-depth stories about dealing with PTSD and how they cope. I would love to hear from you guys, you know. So hit me up anytime. I appreciate you for watching. This was Mental Health Mondays. I kept it kind of short today because I'm not feeling all that great today. But I said, let me hop on camera, look presentable, and, you know, talk to you guys. So thank you so much for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, and tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend about Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Teesha on the tube. Ooh. Have a good one. I'll see you in the next video. Enjoy the rest of your day. Peace.